You are listening to Beyond the Checkbox, a podcast that focuses on leading strategies around bringing more mental well-being into the workplace. My name is Ryan Todd. I'm a psychiatrist and the CEO of Adversity. I'm sitting down with industry-leading changemakers to break down their process and see how they are going above and beyond for their workforce mental well-being.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Checkbox. My name is Trudy, and I'm Adversity's VP of Impact. A little bit myself. After completing a PhD in behavioral neuroscience, I spent several years in academia before taking the plunge into the business world, where I've spent the past 15 years in various roles related to behavioral science. At Adversity, my role is focused on ensuring that Adversity's mental health content is grounded in science and positively impacts employers' and employees' mental health concerns. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by three remarkable women to discuss their experiences with mental health and wellness in the workplace within an industry dominated by men, construction. In recognition of Women's History Month, we are presenting a special edition of Beyond the Checkbox, where we will be digging into the experiences and viewpoints of these women who have achieved success and influence in their respective careers. I couldn't be more eager to learn and be inspired by their stories today. Welcome. So before we begin, I'd like to take a moment and let each of you introduce yourselves. Chelsea, would you like to kick us off?
Absolutely. My name is Chelsea Riddle. I am an internal engineer working for Keller North America. I've been working with Keller since 2020, and I have about 9 years total in the geotechnical foundations industry.
Fabulous. Welcome. Helen, would you like to go next?
Thanks. My name is Helen Robinson. I'm a branch manager at GEI Consultants. I've been in the industry about 20 years, and my practice is geotechnical and geostructural engineering, and I'm really happy to be here today.
Thank you. Welcome. And finally, Ashley, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Ashley Shire. I currently have my own company, and I have about 20 years also in the geotechnical engineering field. I am both a geotechnical engineer and an archaeologist. I've looked at soils all over the United States and looked at historic to modern structures.
Fabulous. Welcome. Let's get started with a fairly broad topic, one that's foundational to anybody's experience at work, and that is culture. More specifically, I'm curious to hear what your experience of the culture within your respective workplaces has been. Has there been a need for culture change? And if so, how have you been able to drive positive culture change? And also, has it changed over the past, say, 10 or so years? Maybe we can start with Ashley.
Yeah, I've seen a huge cultural change. When I first started out, going out to my first interviews, I felt like I had to kind of dress up like a dude to even be respected. I don't know if that was because I was in the South or if I was young, but it was kind of that feeling. And now I have employees that are wearing high heels and taking just as seriously in the field as they are in the office. And it's kind of a nice change to see.
Do you have any idea of what has been behind that culture change, or what has been the motivating force behind that?
Oh, I think two things. One, we finally see a lot of women in the industry. There's a lot more of us. We're no longer that just unique thing in the field that you might have to worry about. Now we're commonplace. And because of that, there's this greater role for diversity and what role we do play in that field.
It's so great to hear that people are feeling more and more confident and comfortable to be themselves and bring their whole selves to work. Helen, would you like to share your experiences?
Yeah, I agree with Ashley. I've seen a change over the past 20 years, and I think it's wonderful. I've seen more women active in industry organizations. I've seen more people volunteering their time, and it's really wonderful to see. And I remember a time when there were only a few women, and I have to say, maybe we weren't that nice to each other. We were kind of looking across the room like, who is this competition? Who is this person that I'm competing with? How ridiculous is that? But now I think we seek each other out. At least in the geo industry, I think it's a great community of women in our professional organizations where, we're looking out for each other on social media, supporting and boosting each other's posts. And then in person, it's so wonderful to see each other and to share stories. And I think it's a wonderful cultural shift.
That's so amazing to hear. That sounds wonderful. Chelsea, I'm curious to hear your experiences and impressions.
I mean, I have considerably less time than Ashley and Helen do in the industry, which is kind of funny because even since I joined the industry in 2014, I've seen a huge change in the culture. And like Ashley said, there's a lot more women in the industry. And so, like Helen said, especially women of my generation and younger, we're all about lifting each other up instead of that competition. So I can say that there's a core group of women, at least at my company, that are all around the same age as me. And we're constantly chatting each other, like applauding each other for our accomplishments. And that kind of supportive environment is so valuable in this industry.
I know this seems to be a theme that's come up in your answers to the previous question, but I'm curious to hear your experiences around how do we bring in partners to drive the cultural change that is needed in these industries? And even beyond that, how can others who want to be a partner be a good partner? What does a good partner look like for you in the workplace? Maybe we can start with Ashley.
Okay, I'll take a slightly different spin on that. I see part of the role of those partners is being acknowledging that there is a role for us in the field. And for me, that starts with education, whether that's at the university or technical schools. You're seeing women be those educators now. So people that are sitting in the classroom, not only if you're female, you can look out and see, hey, there's women in these roles, but also it becomes standard then, oh, she's an expert or they're an expert. And you expect that as normal. And so I think that has also helped improve that kind of dynamic overall.
Chelsea, I'm curious to hear your experiences with this.
So my biggest role in finding partnership and allyship within this industry has kind of been just talking about my experiences. I work with a ton of men, and sometimes when you talk with men about your experiences in the industry that are a little less savory, it can be a little bit like hitting them over the head with a frying pan because it's just something that they don't consider. So I think at least my biggest role with this has been being open with my experiences and having that draw in that true allyship where people are willing to listen and actively participate.
I think that's really interesting, and I could totally see how that might be the case where when you do bring these and your feelings or experiences to them, they're not used to it or they're not ready for it. How has that changed, or what can be done to help them understand the broader perspective?
Gosh, that's a really good question. I don't know if it's actually changed that much because a lot of the times I don't see it because it's not something that I experience for people that aren't in the same situation. So I don't know if it has changed, but I think being open about all of your experiences help at least form a different opinion in those people that are kind of blind to what's happening in the industry.
Yeah, that's fair. And Helen, what's been your experience with bringing partners in to drive the cultural change?
Yeah, I think something that's really important when you're bringing in partners is to give them ownership as well, or we don't just need help and support. We need co-owners of this issue of creating the cultural shift so that all genders feel accepted and empowered. And so it's less helpful to have someone on the outside looking in. I'm here if you need anything. And more helpful if they jump right in and start solving problems with us as one of us. I think it's helpful. As Ashley said, there's more people coming into the profession. And so there's a lot of people with stepdaughters, sisters, other women in their lives that they know that they can relate to. And sometimes that gives them a different perspective and helps them to become that true partner that we need.
I'm curious to know, as an add-on to this discussion, how this change in the workplace and changing culture and now being in a place where you do have better partnership within your workplaces, how has that impacted your mental health and well-being? Or have you noticed an impact?
I mean, I definitely have. I feel like, right, the underlying stress that might exist when you're trying to fit in or you're trying to mask something to become the person that someone is expecting you to be, or the stereotypical engineer, scientist, technician. Sometimes we don't even realize that's there until the pressure goes away. And now we can be ourselves and we can dress the way we want to and speak the way we want to, the way that we feel most comfortable. And I think when that goes away, then, we can truly achieve our goals and become the most effective teammate that we can.
I love that, how it increases your potential to really step into the full potential that you have at your place of work. Ashley, I'm curious to hear if there has been, or what your experience has been from a mental health perspective.
I think for me, on the actual day-to-day work, you've seen a shift just even in safety related to women's issues. I can remember a time where it was like, oh, hey, wear this hard hat, wear this, vest that may not fit you. You're going to be safe, And now there's consideration for the different needs that different body types are going to need and have in the field. So that helps a lot with feeling safe, because if you're considered, if you're thought about, even from that basic safety standpoint, that improves that well-being, like what Helen was talking about, like just being acknowledged and being able to be who you are in those places allows for greater things. On the personal side, I've seen, because there's more women, there's more diversity in the workforce. There's more acknowledgement that we're all human too, because of that. I think that was a big shift from COVID, when you saw a lot of men with kids running around in the background. It's allowed it to be more common to talk about a whole diversity of things that affect you, not just as a worker, but as a mom, as a sister, as a brother, as any of those kinds of things that affect your life. And then I've also seen a greater kind of acknowledgement that there are things that can happen to women that aren't the best thing, regardless of how amazing they are in the workplace, and that can affect their careers. I am a survivor of domestic violence, and that happened while I was working, right? Not on the workforce, but it happened on a Monday, and I didn't show up for 3 days because I was kidnapped. I was trapped in a room where I was injured, and it was because of my coworkers that I was able to survive. I was able to get out a message. So having those kinds of relationships, not just, in the workplace, helps overall. I had a great support team with my colleagues at the time to make sure I could return to work and function the way I am today. So
thank you for your vulnerability and sharing that story. That's tremendous. The courage that you displayed is inspiring. I can't even imagine the importance of a support network at work for if you're going through something like this. Did you find, you speak about how supportive it was. Did you at any point think, being in a more male dominated workplace, that was a hindrance?
Sometimes I did. I wondered if, because of what happened, if my role was kind of looked at differently, and I don't know if that had an effect, because I was just trying to survive and get through things and get the job done. I can tell you that working and getting out of the field and all those things was a great help, and I never had anyone tell me I couldn't do something, and I think that was really beneficial to my healing and becoming the person I am today, because I don't think I was. I don't think anyone held me back. I know they would check up on me more just to make sure I was there, but that would be expected.
Absolutely. And I think that that experience speaks to the importance of the workplace as a place that can also help with mental health and resilience. Because mental health doesn't stop when you go to work, and the stresses that you have at work don't end when you walk out the door and go home. And same with home life. The stresses at home don't stop when you leave your house, and you can leave them behind when you're at the workplace. So that blending in and the support that you can feel at work that can aid in your mental health and wellness journey, I think is fundamentally important as a human being and just to thrive. So thank you for sharing that story. Chelsea, I'd love to hear your take on this as well from a mental health and wellness perspective and the importance of having those partners at work.
Yeah. So first of all, Ashley, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's nice to hear that the culture at your workplace was able to help you. I do believe that, like Ashley said previously, with COVID, a lot of people saw their coworkers turn into fully rounded humans because, like you said, there's kids in the back, there's dogs barking, there's absolute chaos in the back of Teams meetings. And it made everyone a little more, I guess, empathetic, at least in my experience, in the workplace to what's actually happening at home and in your life outside of work. It made people more sensitive to the fact that, oh, there is a life outside of work that we also need to take care of. So I think that's one good thing about COVID, maybe the only good thing. But there was a definitive culture shift at that point where people were seen more as people than coworkers. And I think that's a really important step to take in the partnership aspect, is viewing everyone as a well-rounded person and not just, like Helen was saying, as an engineer or a stereotypical scientist.
Absolutely. I love the theme that, COVID and us all being remote made us more human at work because it had to. We all had to acknowledge and be vulnerable with the situations that we had at home and make room and be patient with each other as we navigated that. I'm curious to hear from each of you around psychological safety and what your experience has been with psychological safety at work, and perhaps more pointedly, what's working and what needs to stop or change with regards to psych safety in the workplace for you personally. Maybe we can start with Chelsea.
One of the biggest things to note here is that men struggle with mental health in the field as well. Like, it's so well known, and the statistics are absolutely horrifying. And I think we really need to put that in context as well, and just say that women may face those struggles plus a little bit extra on top of it, because they may not feel physically or psychologically safe going to work every day. In general, men aren't going to experience sexual harassment or bullying on the same scale as women in the field. And that still does happen with fairly regular or fair regularity on site. And so I think we've made a lot of strides because there are more women in the workforce. I still think there's a very long way to go for women to feel physically safe on site and psychologically safe as well.
Thank you for sharing that. Ashley, curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think the big focus here is that, unlike other fields, we're not always just sitting in around an office and doing calculations or doing safety plans. We're actually out of the field. We're out in the dirt, and a lot of times in very remote areas. And in my case, generally in a small team. Maybe it's me and maybe one other person in a remote area where maybe the gas station nearest is like 10 miles down a dirt road. So there's a lot to mental health that people don't always think about. If you don't know how you're going to react in those situations, it can be really alarming. In the field of archaeology that I come from, everyone kind of joked about like, ooh, how people act in the field and how it's different, and you need to be aware of those situations. You need to know how you're going to interact and know how you're going to survive. I've been in many situations where you needed to understand the environment around you, whether it's people or not, to be able to make sure that everyone is safe and can get the work done.
Amazing. And Helen, what are your experiences?
Yeah, I've been on project sites that are very well established with hundreds of people, and also, like Ashley describes, sometimes in geotechs we're there first and we're the only ones doing some soil borings in the middle of an empty field. So I think it is very situational. But one thing that I see that's important, and everybody's experience varies, but for the most part, I've been treated very well in the field. People carrying things for me, taking a wheelbarrow of concrete from me, things like that, where I have not seen my peers that are male experience the same thing. I've seen that they're bullied, made fun of, teased, and this is unacceptable. We have to make sure that our employers are supporting psychological safety for all genders, that it's not just worrying about the women out there. I really feel like the men have it worse in many cases. They have to prove themselves and, are just subject to more, in my experience, more bullying. So I think we just need to watch out for everybody. And it's very important that our employers take a firm stand and a zero tolerance policy. And as soon as any type of situation is reported, it can't be, oh, that's not so bad, that's not really harassment. We just need to put an end to that immediately. I feel strongly about that because I have sons too, and I just want the equity to exist for everyone. So,
and I couldn't agree more. Having psychological safety across the workforce, regardless of age, gender, or ethnicity, anything, it needs to be a safe workplace for everyone. How important has it been to build relationships and networks in adjacent industries? So not just partners within your own place of work, but building partnerships and relationships across various industries. And have you been able to create safe spaces to be vulnerable at work?
I mean, we're all sort of on the same path. We're all working towards the same things. So it's always great to have parallel conversations in other industries and to talk to women in structural engineering, women in construction engineering, and, just really kind of reach out. And it's helpful. Those pioneering ahead of us that have already broken ground and made changes. I know, for example, walking through the airport now, when I see there's places to use a breast pump or to breastfeed, I think, wow, man, where was that 10 years ago when I was traveling and trying to do that? And it's just great to see that there are advances in that type of thing, and more blogs and more podcasts and more things with people sharing their experiences and hacks and things that make their life easier. I think it's great to share those things and, help us all move forward together.
Chelsea, what are your impressions of this?
Yeah, I'll agree with everything that Helen said. We're all working towards the same goal, which is a safe workplace, both psychologically and physically for everyone. And so having those different experiences across industries and those different kind of conversations with people that may work in a completely different field than you do is really invaluable.
Ashley, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think networking, regardless of what field you're in, is needed. I like to work by the rule of three. If three people tell me something, even if I don't like it about myself, then I have to sit back and take a look. But it also works the other way. If you have at least three people, it can help you move in your career. I wouldn't be here without the women, my professors that came before me that literally grabbed me and been like, you're going to be a geotechnical engineer. Okay. Having those kind of people in your life that kind of can help you and grab you and help direct you are needed. So yeah, I use that rule of three. I strongly recommend everyone have that regardless of if that person is in your industry or not, but having those people that have, like Helen said, that have gone before you, people that you can also bring up to, it's so beneficial.
This is another topic that has come up, I think, in our discussion already today, but I'm curious to hear from each of you. What are the best ways that we can mentor and support the next generation of women who are entering trades? How do we help them feel safe, supported, and ensure that they are having equal opportunities for career advancement?
I think one thing we can do is continue to be visible, because at least for me, when I see that, the phrase, if you see it, you can be it, and that rings true for me. I love seeing that example. And I think if we can stay visible, that helps future generations. We've long had the conversation here about when we're doing outreach, do we talk to kindergartners, grade school, high school? Where do we grab these girls, these young girls, and make them see that this is a possibility for them? And going into the schools and sharing your story and passing your hard hat around, reading a book about construction. And so, of course, that they know I want to be a doctor, I want to be a teacher. They don't even know engineer may be a possibility, or scientist. And so I think if we can remain visible, that can only help future women in the trades and in our field.
I love that. As a mother of two daughters, I couldn't agree more. Ashley, your thoughts?
I don't know if you can see this, but I have a pink hard hat. And I love wearing this in the field. And I've been made fun of because of it, like, pink. But, and I used to hate the color pink too. But I don't know a kid that doesn't like to play in the dirt. And what I love so much is when those kids that see me wearing this hard hat, they come, and like I've had a mother bring her kids up to a trench that I was working on, and just to see me working, because I was a woman in the field playing in the dirt, quite literally. So I think that visibility that Helen is talking about is so important, showing just the diversity of roles in construction. Like, as a woman, you don't just have to be the office worker. You can actually be out there, the one in the field doing the work. And the more we show that, the more there's going to be, the better everything is going to be all around.
Finally, Chelsea.
Agreed, absolutely. If you can see it, you can be it is something that I actually try to incorporate into almost anything, like marketing wise, that I do for Keller specifically, because it's true. There's just not a ton of representation, and by being more visible, you can help show other women that it's possible. And then in addition to that, like, as our careers progress, I want to make sure that if I'm running through a door, I don't slam it behind me. I want to bring others through the door with me. So really promoting women within the industry as well, once you get to those higher levels, is something that I think does wonders for promoting women in our industry.
Couple last questions. First, is there any question that I didn't ask that you feel really passionate about that you want to share with our audience?
I would say for me that I think one thing that we didn't necessarily address is diversity as a whole in our industry. And I think the more diverse our industry is, the better it will be for everyone. So it's not just women versus men, it's diversity and inclusion across all types that really needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. Thank you. Helen, anything that you wanted to share that you didn't get to touch on today?
Yeah, I think it's important to know that if you're at a firm where you don't see some of these changes being made, find a place where you feel comfortable. And there are firms out there that support all of these initiatives. And like Chelsea said, diversity, throughout the company. So there are, sometimes you'll find that maybe leadership somewhere isn't supportive of these things. Find a place that is. That's my recommendation, so that you can thrive.
Absolutely. And finally, Ashley, anything that you wanted to share?
I think so much we need to remember how important it is to engage with people early in their careers, because you can get stumped. You are going to hit these kind of roadblocks regardless of your gender and identity. We all have these times where we doubt ourselves, or we run into that person that drives us insane and we go, oh, maybe I should just stop this. And there's been a decline too in women staying through all the way to their careers for various reasons. And so I think we need to acknowledge this when people start on their careers. You're going to hit these adversities. And that's okay. You need to learn from them. We're engineers and things like that. We expect things to break, but we need to figure out ways to fix them and move them forward. I want to know if other women have had this experience where they've had some resistance when they've made a statement out of the field or pointed out like, hey, you shouldn't do that. And no one has taken you seriously. And so you go, okay, you go ahead and try it. And it doesn't work. And then they're like, oh, I didn't know if that was just me or if this was because also of the gender or experience level at the time.
I guess, I've had that experience too. I think, especially when you're young out in the field and you're working with people who have been in construction for a long time, there can be that disparity or, who does this person think they are, who's coming out of school and, no experience and trying to, direct something. So that's frustrating. And it can really be, frustrating, disappointing when someone isn't listening to what you're saying, especially when it's a safety issue, when we're talking about an OSHA violation or, you really shouldn't do it that way. That's not safe. And then, you don't want something to happen to prove you were right in that case. But, it can be very frustrating.
Final question before we leave. I'm curious to hear what is your favorite self-care practice? If you're feeling stressed or if you're feeling challenged, what is your favorite thing to do to come back to yourself and feel some peace?
Ironically, the biggest thing for me is literally playing in the dirt. If I'm having a bad day, getting my hand to the ground is always helpful. My husband even starts creating random projects where he's like, well, we need to dig that hole. And it really makes a good part of my day.
Yeah, I love being outside, doing something with the kids. I have 3 dogs. I just take a break, step away. I think what Ashley just said was important, that we do hit a wall. I tend to think, oh no, I made a big mistake. I shouldn't even be doing this, even now. And I'm working on that, but I think it's important to step away and reframe and talk to some people and, have a fresh perspective and then come back and address the problem and everything goes smoothly.
Yeah, kind of the same as Helen and Ashley. I take a mental health walk every day at lunch. So I get out of the building, I reassess, and there's something about being outside in the fresh air that can help adjust your attitude maybe a little bit.
I'd like to thank the panelists for their participation today. I'm inspired by their vulnerability and experiences. They shared great insights into how the industry has changed to support women and also the work that still needs to be done. I hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as I have. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for joining Beyond the Checkbox. See you next time.